Welcome to Fred Achando Analysis, ladies and gentlemen from wherever you are watching this channel. Allow me from the onset to say I'm really grateful for your continued support. Allow me to ask you for only two things. One, with profound humility, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, kindly do. Hit the subscribe button and don't forget to click the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you whenever we release a video. Number two, kindly give our videos more likes so that YouTube can recommend them to more viewers and you will be increasing our revenue stream too. I want to say this. The onslaught against the 4 dissenting commissioners, Madam Juliana Cherera, who is the Vice Chair of the IEBC, Justus Nyang'aya, Francis Wanderi, and Irene Masit, has revived a debate around those people who stood by Mr. Ruto's way when he was coming to become the President of Kenya. The truth is, and as it is all over the world, that when you are campaigning to become a president and in a hotly contested election such as ours, you don't expect everyone to support you. Because in our Kenyan scenario, almost half of the votes went to William Ruto and another half went to Raila Amolo Odinga. And there were those who did not support William Ruto. And ladies and gentlemen, if there are Kenyans whom I even feared would flee this country once William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua took oath of office, were 4 men. One was Fred Okengo Matiang'i, who was the cabinet secretary in the Interior, in the office of the president, manning internal security. His permanent secretary, Karanja Kibicho, Inspector General Hilary Mutyambai, and of course the big man, the prefect of all of them, the former director of criminal investigation, Mr. George Kinoti.
Watu wa Kapkatet, tunataka tumwambie ule mtu wa sinema mingi anaitwa nani ule mtu? Ule sijui anaitwa na DCI, ule anaitwa nini? Ule mtu anaitwa Kinoti. Awache ujinga. Huyo bwana Kiboti awache ujinga. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Huyo Kinoti hakuna kitu amefanya kwa hii Kenya.
Impunity, witch hunt and revenge. Their target has been the institutions and individuals the regime thinks did not dance enough to its tunes during the campaigns. The regime has also targeted those it believes it cannot trust to dance to the order's tune in 2027 elections. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations and Mr. George Kinoti were among the first victims.
In fact, at some point, I thought Mr. Kinoti was carrying the burden of all this team and that he was going to be sacrificed at the altar of justification. But how did Mr. Kinoti outwit the president and survived all this onslaught? Because of late, I have a feeling that the president and the team have abandoned the pursuit for prosecution against George Kinoti and his team. I no longer hear them talking about Fred Matiang'i or Hilary Mutyambai or whoever. How did they just manage to outwit the administration? What was this secret card that they used? Because at some point, I feared even for his life, Mr. Kinoti himself. Because Mr. Kinoti was actually accused of 2 major things. One is that he presided over the mass killing of innocent Kenyans and that he was dumping them in River Yala. He was in charge of the special service unit that Mr. Ruto accused of very many things. And number two, that Mr. Kinoti coerced and cajoled the Director of Public Prosecution, Mr. Nordin Haji, to level charges against our Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and anybody who was supporting William Samoei Ruto then. And the third one, even though it is not coming out very clearly, they know that Mr. Kinoti arrested and undertook a forensic audit against the three Venezuelans, the very famous Jose Camargo and his team. Those are the three charges. And I want to believe that the charges were being leveled against him, number one, because of revenge. The administration wanted to revenge because he stood on their way when they wanted power. Number two, it was meant to justify the removal of cases against the deputy president and all other Kenya Kwanza team, people like Aisha Jumwa. And this is the reason why they were saying that Mr. Kinoti was on a fishing expedition where he was looking for those people who were supporting Kenya Kwanza team just to look for cases to level against them. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is the reason why they went for Mr. George Kinoti. But what was this secret card that assisted Mr. Kinoti to go scot-free, to exonerate himself, and to overpower the administration? Number one, in my considered opinion, George Kinoti was a police officer and he had served for very many years as a man in the disciplined force. And that meant that during the years that he was there, he had loyalists because he was a boss. I believe there are people he had recruited over there, because once you are in such a caliber, you've reached such stature of being a DCI, then you have the authority and the leeway to recruit. And so when the new administration came over, they thought that dealing with Mr. George Kinoti was going to be a walk in the park. Then they realized that it was not easy. Because when they arrested the junior officers who were serving in the special service unit, the unit they had accused of killing innocent Kenyans, including the two Indians who came into the country with some motives that we've not understood, they arrested these junior officers and they wanted them to confess what exactly they were doing. And I had some of them claiming that they were being coerced to frame their colleagues. And this backfired very badly. It looks like you cannot set a police officer against another uniformed officer. They refused to cooperate and they rebelled. You know, the military, the military and the police are not allowed to join any trade union. They cannot join, and so they cannot go on strike publicly in the glare of the cameras that they are now rioting. But what they usually do is that they go on a go slow, where they kind of embrace some laxity. And you also in the country, when the country was left to be controlled in the hands of criminals, robbers, and thieves. And this is because the uniformed men felt that they were being bullied and being micromanaged. And we saw people are being mugged in glare of a camera, in broad daylight. And I even heard some people saying that they could even go to an extent of trying to engineer some of these things, to sabotage. It was pure sabotage. Why? Because the new administration started acting and dealing with them as if they were civilians. And I remember one day Mr. George Natembeya, who is the current governor of Trans Nzoia, advising the president that it was wrong to parade police officers on TV as if they belong to a criminal enterprise. And he advised the president to change tacts of how he would deal with the police officers. Even if you realize that some are wrong, you cannot publicly condemn them, because while doing that, criminals realized that now the SS unit that was dealing with them had been disbanded and they took over. So Mr. Kinoti played this card of a uniformed officer who was still enjoying support of some of the men in uniform. So it backfired, and this is how he hit the administration on the face and below the belt, and it was not going to work. And they dropped those charges. As we speak, I believe Mr. Muchambai, Matiani, Karanja Kibichu, and Mr. Kinoti are free men, enjoying themselves in their country. And number two, Mr. Kinoti played the ethnic card. You see, he went back and spoke to his people, and that is why you listened to the Njuri Nchege. They were thanking Mr. Rigathi Gachagua for forgiving Mr. Kinoti. And from then, what happened after he had complained to them, the members of his community went to Mr. Rigathi Gachagua and Mr. Ruto, and they told him that we voted for you to the last man. Because the truth is, in Meru and Embu, William Ruto scored. He painted that place yellow. They voted for him. So they asked Mr. Ruto, we voted for you, and Kenya has moved on, but we still see a situation where you are still going and following our son. Why don't you let Kenya heal? And they kept on insisting until William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua gave in. They could not continue pursuing Mr. George Kinoti. The third thing that happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that fate played its role. Because at the height when he was being pursued with an intention of being prosecuted, Kenya was Kenya was in turmoil. Kenya was grappling with food insecurity. Insecurity in the hands of criminal and gangsters. Animals were dying as a result of drought and lack of water. And so the administration was being accused as an institution of misplaced priorities. Kenyans could not understand how their priority was to follow former police officers, those who stood on their way when they were campaigning to become president deputy. And even Kenyans abroad kept on tweeting and asking, what is wrong with the administration? Why can't they let go? Even if some people stood on their way, they unsurmounted all those problems. And now they are president and deputy. What is wrong with them? And they felt ashamed. Because there's no way they were still going to focus. Every now and then you watch TV and you listen to radio and social media and print media, you get about a government that is pursuing former policemen, yet people are dying of hunger. People are lining up for just one packet of hunger. And they felt this was not going to work. And fate played a very important role here. And that is why following Mr. Kinoti became a tall order, ladies and gentlemen. And this administration just realized that some people had moved on. And by trying to revive these charges, you are adding salt to injury. You are waking a sleeping dog. And the end result would be the dog will wake up and bite you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is in this light that I want to say that for Kenya to move on, for Kenya to heal, let the administration forgive everyone who stood on their way. Because the truth is, as I said earlier, you cannot expect to be supported by everyone when you want to become a leader. That is the essence of an election. Otherwise, people could just be handpicked. But an election demands that people compete and the winner takes it. And once you get to power, you must be a person who can work with enemies. Let me ask you, we have got about 7 to 8 million Kenyans who did not vote in favor of William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. What do you do with them if you keep on following people like Cherera and her team because they did not support you in, that's what they're saying? What are you going to do with the 7 million Kenyans who did not vote? Are you going to deny them services? How I wish that we cultivate a culture of forgiveness, a culture of uniting Kenya, because the most important thing now that our president should do is that he should start a process of healing the nation. And one of the things that he should do to heal the nation is that let him forget those who did not support him. It is true that it could be that they suffered in the hands of the former administration. But let them move on and let this divided nation be united. Because the president is the symbol of unity. What do you think from where you are? Because your guess will be as good as mine.